Roger Goodell is at the NFL owners' meetings, which took place yesterday in Atlanta. And the discussion covered a number of things, but he met with reporters after the league approved Tom Brady as 10% owner now of the Las Vegas Raiders. They awarded Atlanta, the reason for actually hosting the meeting there, they awarded Atlanta the 2028 Super Bowl at Mercedes-Benz Stadium. That was another item that was on the docket for them. But one that was a big storyline a couple of years ago that is now back in the headlines is Deshaun Watson. And it's not just because of his awful play. I mean, he's been terrible since signing the guaranteed contract, fully guaranteed contract, first of its kind for the type of money and position. And the Browns have not seen the results, and that's putting it mildly. There's Deshaun Watson, the player, Deshaun Watson, the individual off the field where he was suspended. Ultimately, they settled on 11 games. And since then, we've seen another allegation since he's been suspended. Most recently, back on September 10th, was when the latest civil suit was filed on behalf of another accuser, this time accusing Watson, more of the same, sexual assault and battery. The details are not pretty with this. And Goodell, well, we know that they've suspended him before, and since then, would they suspend him again? There's been discussion that and reports that there's a piece of the contract with the Cleveland Browns that he had to be upfront and honest about what was going to happen throughout the possible suspension, the likely suspension, and if he settled, is he settling everything that the Browns would know about or not? And if not, and if he didn't disclose it, they could potentially get back some of the guaranteed money, if not all of it, that was remaining on the contract. Judge Sue Robinson, who oversaw the hearing and handed down her advice and judgment on what the suspension should be, she even concluded that his testimony during that process did not seem all that credible, that she had issues with his credibility throughout. And, well, here's another example. The latest civil suit that has since been settled, which is why this is back at the feet in the hands of Roger Goodell as to what they're considering. According to the lawsuit back on September 10th, Watson met this woman at a Houston restaurant back in July of 2020. So this is 4 years ago. And after a period of exchanging text and other things, by October, she had invited Watson over to her apartment, condo, house, or residence. And he was upset about the fact he couldn't find her place and was yelling at her, aggressively yelling and screaming and stating that he could not find her apartment, is what Watson said. And when he arrived, while waiting for the woman to finish getting ready in her bathroom, he undressed himself. Again, these are the allegations within the civil suit that has since been settled with a confidentiality agreement, I might add. So upon her coming out of the bathroom, the woman found Watson allegedly totally naked in the bed and insisted that she massage him in places other than the shoulders. And she says she was afraid, that she attempted to massage his back instead, and eventually she was assaulted. Again, according to her attorney, Busby, and this civil suit that has been settled. They were seeking damages up to or surpassing $1 million, according to a New York Times story. And based on the settlement, the confidentiality agreement means that she's not going to be cooperating with any NFL investigation that Roger Goodell says is ongoing with this. Said this yesterday. We are unlikely to see Deshaun Watson be suspended because, number one, everyone's going to throw out this confidentiality agreement, and no one's going to cooperate with this. That's part of it, but the main part of this is that contract. I believe that the 31 other NFL owners they wouldn't be clamoring to let Jimmy Haslam and the Cleveland Browns off the hook for a potential $92 million contract that's remaining on the guarantees that he signed back in 2022. They were all upset with the fully guaranteed contract that the Browns came back with over the top to surpass whatever Atlanta's offer was at the time. Remember, he was going to the Falcons, and his agent came back and said, hey, let's try the Browns one more time. Would you be willing to go play in Cleveland? And he more or less said, hey, if they're going to match every term on this deal, yeah, let's do it. And the Browns did it. And the other owners did not want and don't want and have not followed that precedent. They did not want to set a precedent for fully guaranteed deals, and they haven't done it with the other contracts that we've seen. Lamar Jackson tried and failed. And since then, the other quarterbacks haven't tried all that hard to get the type of money and the guarantees, the fully guaranteed contract that Watson received. And I do think part of this is if we as a collective group come back and there's Watson going back on the commissioner's list, the suspension list, that the Browns can be off the hook for a good chunk of the contract that's remaining that leaves their hands tied. So while I'm sure from the optimistic perspective, if you're just a football fan, you want to see this happen, especially if you're a Browns fan. There's plenty of reasons why the NFL owners want to see Haslam have to pay this and shell out this money because they want to use this as an example. If any other owner wants to try and do this, look what happens if it doesn't pan out. You're left with this. And I view it as, again, they're not going to cooperate because they had a confidentiality agreement. The NFL is judge, jury, and executioner for the personal conduct policy. You don't have to be found guilty of a crime to receive punishment from the NFL. But in Deshaun Watson's case, given the fact that he's already been suspended 11 games, which was light punishment for the more than, 20 settlements that he ended up with whenever he came back to the league, whenever he was reinstated after his holdout, and after he was traded, and after he was going through limbo of whether or not he would actually be allowed to play. They're not going to come back and do it again for this one because they don't want to see an owner who gave this contract that no one else agreed with and, quite frankly, they were very upset with, be able to just push it aside and move forward without having to pay that money. Davey, I really believe that's what it is. They'll point back to the fact that no one's going to cooperate with them, which, again, no one has to, in the civil, you don't have to, you're not obligated to sit down and chat with anybody from the league. They have no power over that.
No, and it's an interesting take. I like how you played it out as looking at the other 31 owners and what their interests are in this situation. We have discussed before the idea that, those other owners are glad to see Deshaun Watson fail simply because it means they don't have to give that contract later on to whoever their future franchise QB might be. So the fact that this continues to get worse and worse for Deshaun Watson, the other NFL owners are looking at it from hey, this is actually a good thing. Now, no one's sitting here saying the accusations that are being thrown out towards him as it relates to his sexual assault allegations, everything in line with that is good. It is weird, though, and I just kind of take a step back. I mean, fan is short for fanatic. And I'm just trying to think of another industry in general where people are wanting, because at this point, I've seen Browns fans come out and say this, whether it be social media or just, some crazy phone calls you might get, but they're wanting more allegations to come out against Deshaun Watson in the hopes that it does lead to him being suspended so that their team's able to get out of this contract.
Yeah, it forces their hand for the league to actually do something about it again.
And to be honest, no one's going to be surprised if come tomorrow, Tony Busby's got another victim that's filing suit. And it continues to unravel for this guy, and it's not going to get any better. And from just a pure playing standpoint, like I've not seen anything this season that makes you think he's ever going to turn it around, especially in this current system that they're running in Cleveland. So if you're a Browns fan, I've got nothing to say, but I mean, you just you're going to have to wait it out, unfortunately, because nothing's changed anytime soon.
No, it's not. I mean, how many teams have scored at least 20 points in a game so far this season? Every one of them, except for the Cleveland Browns. Passing for 200 yards is a pipe dream for the Cleveland Browns right now. And they just traded away Amari Cooper. Yeah. So, look, from the Browns' perspective, Stefanski standing up there and saying Watson gives us the best chance to win. He gives them the best chance to win the number 1 overall pick, is what he does. And they're moving on to another quarterback, and if they have to have Watson on the roster due to the contract, well, he's the backup. But he's not going to be the backup until there's someone that moves this franchise forward. But again, by suspending him, if there is a new clause or he signed something where the Browns can get back or retain the money that is due in the guarantees, $92+ million, that would also allow them to move forward. And I don't think the rest of the league, the NFL ownership group, they don't want to see the Browns move forward this easy. No. Just based on the business side of things. Yeah, and I mean, just from that cap hit standpoint, I know they restructured his contract. Was that last year? And they will do that moving forward too. Again, because they have to. They want to roll money around and give him more of a signing bonus every time he does it, because that alleviates some cap space. It will, but we know if you're going to continue to ride with him, which, I mean, the Browns had success last year once Joe Flacco was put into the mix and Deshaun was out. I don't know why. Played 4 quarterbacks. You don't try to see Jameis. I mean, we know what you're going to get with him, but there could at least be that spark of, all right, we can get the offense going. There's going to be the turnovers, but hey, we've got a really good defense. Maybe they're able to stand pat and just hold them to field goals if Jameis does turn it over in his own territory. But yeah, you just know. That gives them a better chance to win. Yeah. Which doesn't help them in the draft. So, and it's, I mean, listen, we've known teams to tank before, and at this point, I'm sure I've watched Jimmy Haslam destroy a lot of things in life. I come from Knoxville, Tennessee. And while... And his father and Pilot Oil, they were, and Pilot remains big donors and boosters of Tennessee athletics. Yes. Just for background there. And so I first got into sports media when Jimmy was definitely trying to pull some strings as it related to Tennessee football. And it doesn't turn out well. And since he's been at the forefront of the Browns, while they have had some success, you can just tell the current structure of that franchise and the way that team is built is going nowhere, and it is nothing but a drain on the faith of the Cleveland fans. And I feel for them. I really do. Makes you wonder who else is on the trade block there, or potentially could be, because again, they're gunning for the draft with what we've seen so far this season. You've seen it on the screen a bit. Maintaining with Tyre is a special with Donald Trump. His sit down with Donald Trump will be available Friday morning, 8 o'clock Eastern, at OutKick.com. That's where you can find it. Again, this Friday, 8 o'clock, OutKick.com. And President Trump's been making the rounds. He's on with Bussin With The Boys recently. And at any time he's going to sit down and do an interview or chat or just talk, that's going to be covered. There's going to be praise, there's going to be scrutiny, and everything in between. And that's what has happened, at least with one particular answer, and an exchange with Bussin With The Boys. It's hosted by Taylor Lewan, former Titans left tackle, and a former Washington Commander and Raider and Titan linebacker, Will Compton. Here is what has caused some of the stir, so to speak, from the Washington Post. Compton has responded to this, but what did he respond to? It had to do with this Q&A.
And I played football too. I didn't particularly like it.
What position were you?
No, I didn't like it. I played tight end.
Yeah. Can block.
And I didn't
catch
like,
you
had some hands.
We got Delaney Walker behind.
I could catch the ball good, but I didn't particularly like having some guy that was lifting weights all day long and came from a bad neighborhood.
Yeah.
And he sees me, and they were tackling hard.
So they're talking football, Compton played linebacker, of course, and he made reference, I believe, to, at least on X, Trump couldn't play the A-gap, so to speak. Well, the Washington Post reaches out to Compton for comment about why the host, he and Lawan, were laughing in response to what Trump had to say. And instead of just responding to the Post, Compton hopped on X and gave a response without technically giving a response. But you hear a certain sound that he has been known to give when he's being sarcastic about any criticism.
All right, as you guys know, our latest episode of Bussin With The Boys, we had on Donald Trump. And if you want to go watch it, it's on all of our channels, on all of our platforms, go check it out. But we knew that there'd be a reaction. Good, bad, media would react, and we are getting our first media encounter. The Washington Post has reached out for comment regarding a remark made during the episode that's gaining online attention, including from Trump's opponent in the presidential race. The remark they're referring to that they want comment on is a part of the episode where we're talking ball and how Trump used to play tight end, would have locked him up. And he essentially makes the comment, I wouldn't want to get hit, or I didn't want to get hit by somebody who's been lifting weights all day long and came from a bad neighborhood. Taylor and I laughed. They want our comment. Their question is, why did we find that amusing? And you already know what they want to do with this thing. You want to know what kind of picture they want to paint. You want to know what kind of box they want us to put us in. You want to know, their vision for this entire question on asking that. And number one, I thought it was funny because Trump is sitting there admitting that he is not built for the A-gap, nor is he a tight end that was built for catching a slant over the middle, only to get his vertebrae, his L4 and L5 compressed by a middle linebacker that probably goes on to play at Nebraska and arguably 10 years in the NFL. But just knowing that the direction they want to go with this thing as they write whatever article that they're trying to write. And they asked if Willard Taylor would provide a comment on why we found that amusing. So I'm thinking to myself, well, I'll publicly tell you guys my comment. So Washington Post, here's my comment about why I thought it was amusing.
That is Will Compton being Will Compton right there. And he's done it before with other trolls on social media, which is more or less what the Washington Post is doing here. Looking for a reason to make the Bussin host, Compton and Lawan, a part of some negative story and trying to twist words into a negative story against Donald Trump. No, not surprised in the least. And he admits that too. He's like, hey, we knew this was going to be, they were going to pick this apart, and that would happen, of course. But the fact that they're picking apart why the guys laughed is laughable, because they're sitting down with Trump talking ball, and he's admitting exactly what Compton said. Didn't want to meet a guy like the guy from Nebraska who arguably played 10 years. Again, he wanted the 10th year. He wanted to be a vested vet, get that 10th year. That's big. He's trying to claim he had the 10th year. Yeah, not surprised, and not surprised it's from the Washington Post who reaches out for this. I have looked to see if they have anything about this interview on their site. To my knowledge, they still don't. Can you imagine, Davey, if they use, we reached out for comment and here's the sound that you can click.
Yeah, I doubt they're just going to take. Oh. I mean, at that point, do you just claim, we received no comment? That article's not up yet as of 20 minutes ago. I last checked. I have seen other outlets pick it up and just say, Will Compton does respond with a disgusting act in quotes. I know Daily Mail had that one.
Disgusting act.
Yes. I thought very on brand for Will from, being able to watch him grow in the media world throughout the last several years. It's one of those things to where, a lot of people are pushing back. It's like, you don't know which route the Washington Post was going to take. That's like, Have you not read any of their articles the last 3 years? We know where they were going to take that article. They were going to make it a race-based claim about Donald Trump essentially saying he didn't want to go up against black people. We all know where this was going from, and that is by no means what Donald Trump was insinuating.
And the bad neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean,
they were going to, that's exactly what that you have two white guys sitting there laughing at it.
And it's one of those things to where, I mean, coaches will talk about it a lot of times when people do come from a rougher neighborhood, have a rougher upbringing, whether race is involved at all. Those people are out there grinding, and they know they're going to probably work a little bit harder, and it's going to hurt more whenever you get hit by them.
Deion Sanders says he looks at certain positions and wants guys from certain parts of the life.
Yep. I think it was for defensive tackles. He wants them to grow up in a house only raised by their mother, didn't know their father, and they're just going to constantly be scrapping, looking for more. I think it was the offensive lineman, a two-parent household.
Farm.
It's like he laid it out, and everyone kind of, I know we discussed it on the show, they were reacting as they're like, this is such a terrible thing to say. It's like, I'm just glad somebody's out there willing to say what all these other coaches are thinking.
And have done.
Yeah.
But again, that's the narrative that they want to create in that piece. I wonder what they'll find with the Tyrus interview, which is going to be treated the same way.
But as it relates to, them laughing, we've realized this over the last 8 years. Trump plays to his audience. He has that comedic effect and that timing. And it was, it was a funny moment how he set it up.
Well, that's a normal conversation.
Yeah.
Is what that is. That's a very, you could have that conversation at the bar. For those, a disgusting act, which farting or flatulence is disgusting.
Yeah.
Like these people don't, these disgusting acts.
Yeah, I would refer to it as digging to divide is what the Washington Post is doing right there.
Yeah. I mean, disgusting act. It's amazing. With all the other disgusting acts that will be defended. New Maintaining with Tyrus, again, is coming up this Friday. Special episode of this. Interview with Donald Trump. Donald Trump and Tyrus, only at OutKick.com. It is this Friday, October 17th. 8 o'clock Eastern is when you can find this, available only at OutKick.com.